And I don't know if it's going to go against a theory or with a theory. We'll find out just how bad this is in a moment. When we were living in Boston, we had one of our children was 12 years old and had a general issue with waking up, going to school, listening to anything. This was at a time that he was being homeschooled, and he had a very, very low threshold for frustration and anger, and would just get very, very flustered. And finally came to that point one Sunday afternoon, and he says, "I don't like it here anymore. I'm leaving." So I don't know if I did the right thing or not. I mean, he's okay now. He's 30. But I said, "Son, I'm so sorry to hear that." I went into the closet and pulled out a suitcase, and I said, I love you. This is one of my favorite suitcases, but I'm gonna let you have it." And I pulled out a $100 bill and said, "I hope it works out. We're here for you." And he was just so enraged. He took the money, didn't take the suitcase, but took a backpack and left the house. We're in Boston. He goes up Commonwealth Avenue, passes the Kollel of Greater Boston, and goes to the Best Western on the corner. I know this because afterwards. He's out for about 45 minutes. He comes back, slams the door in front. And I said, "Son, what's the matter?" He says, "Well, the prices went up. It's over $100 for the hotel." Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Do you want more money? He says, No, I'm hungry. That was a fortunate moment of mine that I handled it well. There are other times that I haven't. But that comes from the child knowing that we genuinely love them. And what we're going to learn tonight, and what I'm here to also learn tonight, is some of that opportunity. But before I move on, first of all, everything that we do tonight should really be the simcha that we have, what we learn, and what we incorporate into our lives should really be in merit for all those in Eretz Yisrael that need a shmira, that need a Yeshua, that need to be coming back home to the family as well. And at this time, it's really my honor to really introduce the Rav of the Shul, Baruch Hashem, a colleague, a Rebbe in our high school, to just share a short welcome and to also lead us in Tehillim. Rabbi Bogopolsky.
Thank you, Rabbi Miller. Good evening and welcome everyone to Nusach Hari. Thank you, Mrs. Miller, for putting this evening together and for giving us this opportunity.
I didn't put it together.
Who did?
I just called you.
Who put it together?
So the whole CISF will think.
Okay, thank you to the entire team. Chazal tell us that when there's shalom, that when there's peace in the home, we bring the Shekhinah into our homes. We bring Hashem's presence into our homes. And while we could always use Hashem's presence, I think at this time we desperately need Hashem's Shekhinah, Hashem's presence, Hashem's divine protection. And tonight's event, the schus of us all coming together to bring shalom into our homes, to bring peace into our lives, should really be a schus for all of our Achenu B'nai Yisrael around the world, and especially in Eretz Yisrael, who are looking for shalom, for Yeshuos, for Nachamos, for a safe return for all of the captives and all of our brave Chayalim. We're going to say Kapitel Kuf Lamed, chapter 130, Shir Hamalos B'Mamakim. Please either say it along or say it after me. Shir Hamalos B'Mamakim Krosicha Adonai.
Shir Hamalos B'Mamakim Krosicha Adonai.
Adonai Shema B'Koili Yenos Necho Kashuvois L'Koil Tachanunoi.
Adonai Shema B'Koli Yenos Necho Kashuvois L'Koil Tachanunoi.
Adonai Tishmor Yo Adonai Miyamoi.
Avonos Tishmor Yo Adonai Miyamoi.
Ki Imcha Aslicha L'Man Tivarei.
Ki Imcha Aslicha L'Man Tivarei.
V'isi Adonai Kivson Nafshi ולדברוי הויכלתי.
Hibisi Adonai kibso nafshi v'lidvaro
נפשי לאדוני
chalti.
משומרים לבויקר, שומרים לבויקר.
Nafshi l'Adonai mishomrim laboker, shomrim
יחל
laboker.
ישראל אל אדוני, כי אם אדוני החסד והרבה עמו יפדו.
Yachel Yisrael Adonai, ki Adonai chesed v'arbei
יפדס
mofedus.
ישראל מכל אבוינוסו.
V'hu yiftes Yisrael mikol
Einu kol
avonoso.
beis
Einu
Yisrael,
beis Yisrael
Torah
netzem
v'shivya
b'shar
v'yom
shivya.
v'yom
Olim
v'yom
yom
v'yom
yom
v'yom
yom
v'yirachim aleim v'yitzim mitzvot v'vocho v'yafelu v'shibugulash kol bad v'lo v'zman karev v'marochem.
Before I introduce our esteemed guest speaker, I just want to take this opportunity firstly to thank the Rav and to thank Nusachari for hosting us. Just Bli Ayin Hara this week has been filled in the shul with so much Torah, double simcha over Shabbos. It's really wonderful to be here. I also want to thank all the, I get so nervous. Oh, that's right. We rehearsed this before. Okay. Before I introduce the esteemed person who's going to be sharing with us what the organization is about, after which I will be introducing the esteemed guest speaker. I want to thank all the CISF members by name, Orly Axelbaum and Suri Botak, Abigail Brown, Linda Cohn, who's not here this evening, Devorah Fagenbaum, Miriam Gewirtz, Gitti Greenhart, Shoshana Kowalski, Devorah Miller, and Susie Rosenblum. Thank you so much for spearheading this incredible initiative. Special thank you to Devorah Cohen, who did such an outstanding job of designing the magnets, and a special thank you to Dina Friedman for designing the flyer, and to Chaya Rosenberg for designing the brochure. Yasher Koch to each and every one of you. At this time, you're going to learn about the organization by Mrs. Devorah Miller.
I'm not Linda Cohen, but
I
these
don't
are
always get
Linda
it right.
Cohen's words. Linda Cohen couldn't be here tonight. She is with her children, helping them to move. I was going to hold like a picture of her, and I thought, well, that might get awkward. So, but these are her words, and I am reading them to you so that everyone knows what CISF is. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. Our vision, that's Linda's vision, began in 1998 with Sender Axelbaum. Following several divorces in our community, Sender gathered a group of Balabatim to discuss what we can do to prevent future divorces. 6 of us gathered at Young Israel. We began to form a coalition. We usually met at 10 o'clock p.m. We focused on strengthening Shalom Bayis. Our initial programs were very successful with Rabbi Israel Tauber for Shabbos Iyun, Rabbi Michal and Fegi Tursky also for Shabbos Iyun, following up with a marriage workshop by Rabbi Zelig Pliskin. Featured speakers, among others, we brought to St. Louis included Dr. David Pelkovitz, Mr. Avi Shulman, Olav Shalom, Rabbi Daniel Mechanic, and Dr. Jerry Laub. As time marched on, we came to the realization by examining our own families that parenting and chinuch banim are inseparable from Shalom Bayis. We began incorporating programs, seminars, and workshops on all 3 topics. And one of our members worked with the local therapists here to compile a resource guidebook for Rabbanim and Menalim so that they could provide tachlis recommendations for professional help for individuals who needed it. In 2001, we brought in Rabbi Shimon Russell, who at that time focused on struggling teenagers, early detection, and early intervention. He spoke at 8 different venues. Rabbi Russell gave a 4.5-hour workshop for all the day schools. He met with Menahalim, with a group of local therapists, with Rabbanim, with the CISF board, with a facilitator who would run a parent support group, and with a large group of parents. He also met with individuals, which we arranged through CISF. I mentioned Rabbi Russell's visit 22 years ago because it clearly demonstrates our mission. And I have heard Linda say this over and over again. Build a stronger St. Louis community by helping to build stronger families. The vision was to help build the parents, the schools, and shuls so that we, who are all interconnected in Chesterfield, U-City, Epstein, Torah Prep, can have the strength that we need. Our children play together. It does not matter where you live. It does not matter where your children attend school. It does not matter where you daven. Your children are my children, and my children are your children. Since the world is at our fingertips, it no longer takes a village to raise a child, it takes a world to raise a child. Rabbanim have uttered to me, I am so busy putting out fires. Well, I am here to inform you, that would be Linda, that CISF is in the business of preventing fires. This is the vision of CISF, to transform our world, St. Louis, to take preventative measures to ensure the success of our children in school, our children at home, and to improve our relationships with our spouses. A good marriage is a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful gift to our children. They watch how we communicate, how to learn, and even how to disagree. Our Family Power program was halted due to circumstances beyond our control, but we are working on revitalizing the program. And once again, it offers couples with our incredible marriage coaches an opportunity for an intensive 4-day, Our couples were trained in an intensive 4-day workshop back in 2017. As we are relaunching CISF programs and services, we have connected with national organizations such as Relief, who operate a helpline to connect people with much needed professional help on many issues. Relief has already provided relief to members of our community. We are also involved in Parents as Partners WhatsApp group to help parents find educational support for their children. We are organizing parenting classes, shalom bayis classes to achieve our mission. We certainly cannot achieve our mission without you, the community. We encourage everyone to help us by donating funds for programming. We hope to witness your support also by attending our programs. You could find out more about making donations on the website, which there's a QR code, that's what it's called, right? Yes, you can hold it up high, Abigail. There's a QR code right on the magnet and on the brochure. The one on the magnet is for the website, and on the brochure there's a QR code for the Parents as Partners WhatsApp group and for the website. Please help us prevent fires. Following the lecture tonight, we will be offering a series of parenting classes with our own wonderful educator, Divrei Miller, and with Shimshon Gewirtz. She said, wonderful educator, Divrei Miller, and Rabbi Gewirtz. You can sign up by going to the website or by clicking on the QR code. So you'll speak, I presume at the end you'll talk about how people can connect to what you're going to do. Also, Hannah Greenwell will be facilitating a book club featuring Rabbi Shimon Russell's inspiring award-winning book called Raising a Loving Family. We'll continue to communicate with all of you through schools and shuls, texts and WhatsApps. Visit the website for upcoming programs, and posted videos of interest. And just my line at the end is, thank you, Linda. In this world of machlokas, you are a conduit for shlemus.
This evening. The topic for this evening is relationship-based parenting, understanding and enriching the parent-child connection. And it's going to be facilitated and led by Rabbi Shimshon Gewirtz. Rabbi Shimshon Gewirtz has a master's in education, is a Rebbe and general studies principal at MTI, the Zuri Torah Institute. He is the editor of the Journal of Jewish Day School Leadership. He received a smicha from Yeshivas Chavetz Chaim and is a graduate of Loyola University of Chicago, where he received his master's in education and administration. It's my honor to welcome Rabbi Gewirtz.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I hope that we'll learn a lot together. I want to start with some disclaimers. So I want to start by telling you, first of all, what I'm not. I'm not an expert. The ideal person, I think, to give a parenting class would be a grandparent. But I'm not a grandparent. I'm just a parent with a bunch of kids at home, ranging in age from 1 to 16. The reason why I'm here is because over the years, I've learned some things as a result of some parenting challenges that we had in our own family. And as I've learned those things, I've had this overwhelming feeling of, I wish someone had told me this when I was just starting out. I hope that you'll find that some of these ideas change your perspective on parenting and the parent's role too, and I hope that it's not too late and that you won't say, I wish I learned it earlier, but that you'll be able to apply it. I want to tell you who I'm not. I'm not perfect. We all have flaws in our midos, and often the parenting mistakes we make are the result directly of flaws in our midos. If we're honest, we've all witnessed other parents make parenting mistakes, maybe at carpool, maybe at Kiddush on Shabbos, and others have witnessed us making mistakes as well. For example, impatience, quick to anger, lack of empathy. Parenting forces us to work on improving our middos, and it's literally the work of a lifetime. With this in mind, the ideas I hope to share tonight won't make anyone a flawless parent, but I hope that they provide perspective for every parent, whether you have good or bad middos, and hopefully with Hashem's help, we'll make the right parenting moves. I also want to tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to be prescriptive. I'm not going to tell you what you should do when your child does X, or how you should respond when your child says X, or how you should get your baby to sleep for 12 hours straight, or toilet train your 3-year-old. There are many books you can read on these topics, and anyway, I've always felt that as a parent, you have to be yourself. Instead, I'm going to describe a paradigm. We'll set up a framework, and then every parent can use their own best parenting sense and insert their sense into the framework to confront the challenges as they arise. I also want to mention, and thanks to Mrs. Miller for mentioning this, that we're not going to cover the topic exhaustively tonight. This is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, and hopefully we'll have a parenting series that will explore a lot of these ideas in greater depth. I want to start off by setting two contrasting parenting perspectives. On the one side, we'll have what I call the traditional view, and the other side is the relationship-based parenting view. Let me say a few things about the traditional view. Traditionally, parenting assumes that challenges originate in the child and can be solved in the child. So for example, if you have a toddler who won't clean up his toys, and this is a recurring problem, you say this toddler has a problem with making transitions. He has trouble stopping to play. Or he's a toddler and he's exploring his independence. He doesn't want to listen to what his parents are telling him. In the traditional view, development, the child's personality, and the child's strengths and weaknesses are viewed as internal processes, which are largely based on his predisposition. So if you have a 3rd grade daughter who won't go play at a friend's house, it's because she's shy by nature. If you have a teen who speaks combatively to his parents, it's because he has an issue with chutzpah. Or maybe, if you're more progressive, it's because he has a problem with anxiety. The traditional view tends to look at behaviors, and then it says, okay, as a parent, how can we curtail the behaviors that we don't like, that we don't want to see? In this view, sometimes you see good people who have bad children, and we just can't understand it. We wring our hands and we say, this is the challenge of tzaddik v'ralo that no one can understand. Why is it that good families have bad children? Now let's talk a little bit about the relationship-based view. In the relationship-based view, challenges, parenting challenges, can originate both in the child and in the parent, and in the relationship between the child and the parent. So if we go back to our toddler who won't clean up his toys, we can ask a question. Well, what's the parent doing when it's time to clean up? Development and personality of the child are dependent sometimes on the quality and the capacity of the parental care. So our shy 3rd grader, does she feel secure regarding the emotional or practical availability of her mother? Or is she nervous to leave her mother even for a short time because she doesn't know what she'll come back to? The child's self-concept, in this view, is a reflection of the way the adults in their life interact with the child over their childhood years. So we have a combative teenager who might constantly feel like he's being judged. And everything that he says, everything that people say to him, everything he hears from his parents, he takes as criticism. In this view, development in each of his stages is the result of and in the context of the parent-child relationship. The relationship view likes to look past the behaviors and is more curious about what's causing the behavior, which is always harder to find out. Relationship-based parenting doesn't mean parenting through having a relationship, even though that's really nice. Everyone always likes the idea of being friends with their children, having this nice relationship. Relationship-based parenting means parenting with an awareness of the parent-child relationship and that relationship's direct impact on the development and the parenting challenges. In a few minutes, we're going to discuss attachment, and it's going to become clear that the way a parent relates to their child from the earliest age is formative, which means it forms the child. So the way the parent interacts with the child forms who the child is. Everything that the parent brings to the relationship, the parent's own story, the parent's past and their present, becomes relevant. Now, this model can make us uncomfortable because it puts the parent under the microscope. And the parent might be thinking or might be saying, are you saying that it's my fault that my child is disrespectful in school? Are you blaming me for the fact that my 11th-month-old still wakes up at night? How dare you blame a poor mom who hasn't had a good night's sleep in over a year? And this is what I call the blame game. Blame is scary, and it scares people away from asking questions and looking for answers. Think about the mother of the 11th-month-old. Maybe she comes to the pediatrician and she says, doctor, you got to help me. My baby won't sleep. And then the doctor looks at her and says, well, let's talk about your bedtime routine. Let's talk about how you soothe your child when he or she is sad. Let's talk about how you connect to the baby. It would not be a surprise if that mother would just grab her baby and run out of the room. It's like, how are you asking me these questions? What happens if, God forbid, the doctor would ask her about her own mental health history? So let's shift away from thinking about blame. Blame is about guilt. It's saying who's at fault. But let's focus instead on responsibility. And I want to use the word responsibility in two ways. Responsibility can mean two things. It can mean that there's like accountability. It's your job to do it. And it could also mean that you're the root, maybe something that you're doing is the root cause. So I'm using that word responsibility in both ways. I want to illustrate the difference, the practical difference between looking at blame and looking at responsibility by talking for a moment about postpartum depression. I don't hear people talk about postpartum depression much, so I assumed that maybe it was a very rare condition, and I looked it up. Do you know that postpartum depression affects 1 in 7 mothers? So I'm not going to do the math based on how many mothers are in the room, but it's not rare. Now, postpartum depression is very difficult, particularly because it comes at a bad time. It's just when a new mother should be bonding with her new baby, and yet she may feel incapable of bonding. I'm just going to, as an aside, mention that there is treatment for postpartum depression, including very effective medication and other treatments, and it's not something that can't be tackled. And we'll talk more about postpartum depression when we discuss attachment, but I just want everyone to imagine for a moment the experience of a child, a baby, whose mother has postpartum depression, and then compare that to the experience of a baby whose mother doesn't, and whose mother is able to enjoy the time that she's spending with her baby. And think about how that might impact the baby's development in those early months. Of course, there's nothing that the mother did wrong. It's not her fault in any way. So there's no blame to be assigned. There's no guilt here. But the mother does bear responsibility, and the father, because they are the parents. And so maybe after the depression fades, maybe a parent who went through postpartum depression has to be aware that there was a rupture, there was a problem, and then they can focus on repair. Parents have this tremendous opportunity to help their children that no one else has. I work in chinuch, and I deal with talmidim all the time, but there's very little that I can do compared to what a parent can do in terms of changing a child's environment, in terms of getting the child some sort of solution to a problem. Really all that we can do in school is make suggestions, and the parent is the one who has that responsibility. Parents are empowered legally and morally to make changes that can help the child, and also parents have a very special and unique insight into their child. Lots of times parents, when they think deeply, can find the answers. So when you ask the question, in what way am I responsible for my child's problem? That's a question that leads to another question. How can I help my child? It's a very positive question. It opens us up to exploring all the factors that may be relevant, even if they're centered in ourselves or in the relationship itself. I want to share a short Torah thought with you that puts this into perspective. In Megillas Esther, Mordechai encourages Esther to go to Achashverosh at the risk of her life and her connection to the Jewish people. And he tells her, Mi yodea im la'is kazos higat lamalchus, which means, who knows, maybe this is the reason why you became the queen. And the line sounds funny to us because we know the end of the story. Of course that's the reason she became queen. Like Mordechai, you're the last person to realize that. There's a musician named Malach Cohen who has a song based on this pasuk, and he sings the song in English and Yiddish and Hebrew. I'll just read one of the English verses. And he says, maybe whatever you are going through now is the reason that you are here. And then he says, I'm sure that whatever I am going through now is the reason that I'm here. And this is a lesson that I learned last year from Rabbi Russell. Mrs. Miller mentioned that he's been here. He came last year also. And he taught me something that changed the way I look at life. And I want to share it with you. Often when a person is faced with a challenge, whether it's in parenting or some other area of their life, they turn to Hashem and they say, Hashem, why did you do this to me? Why are you giving me this challenge? Rabbi Russell taught us, both when he spoke to parents at Torah Prep and when he met with us in MTI, that everything that happens to us is heaven sent and custom made. It's a gift from Hashem, guiding us to an opportunity for improvement, for achieving greatness. And we have emunah that every challenge we face is from Hashem. The terrible challenge that we face today as a nation, it's min hashamayim. A parenting challenge, likewise, is from Hashem. And so, as good Jews, we accept the good and the bad. What we learned last year from Rabbi Russell is that the difficulty that someone has with their child is the biggest gift from Hashem. Think about it. Are you too impatient? If you are, then I bet Hashem gave you a child who always makes you late. It's like Hashem pointing a bright neon arrow at you, at an area in your life or your personality or your past or your opinions or your convictions or your passions, and saying, it's time to make a change. There's two concepts from child psychology that I would like to speak about. The first concept is called attachment, which you may have heard of. Attachment is defined as the emotional bond between an infant and its parent or caregiver. Attachment is developed as a step in establishing a feeling of security, and it's demonstrated by calmness while in the parent or caregiver's presence. Attachment also refers to the tendency to form such bonds with other individuals, like a babysitter or a teacher in infancy, as well as the tendency in adulthood to seek emotionally supportive relationships. Attachment is described as coming in one of four, depending on which list you look at, but let's say four main styles. There's something called secure attachment, disorganized attachment, avoidant attachment, and ambivalent attachment. In a very general sense, children with secure attachment have fewer problems as they grow up. However, in the absence of safe and secure attachment, studies show a higher rate of mental illness and even physical illness, such as obesity, asthma, and heart disease. The early work that psychologists did on attachment focused on children in England during World War II who were separated from their parents. They were brought to the countryside to keep them safe from bombings in London and in other big cities. And then there were studies that looked at infants who unfortunately had to be hospitalized and thus were separated from their parents for a period of time. And then more recent studies have looked at correlation between attachment style and other factors. Some of the more recent studies have found a few interesting things. Specifically, parents of children with secure attachment are consistently present and available for their children, while those whose attachment is described as insecure have parents who are inconsistent in their responses and their availability to their children. So just think about what that means. What does it mean to be available as a parent? Additionally, there's a strong correlation between children's attachment styles and the parent's recollection of their own childhood attachment, meaning that attachment style is often passed down from parent to child, intergenerationally. So in these two ways, a child's attachment style depends on the context of his relationship with his parents, both in terms of his parents' capacity and availability and in terms of his parents' own personal history. There's a second concept from child psychology called mentalization. Mentalization is the ability to understand your own and others' mental states, thereby comprehending your own and others' intentions and affects. When you see someone say something or do something, do you understand what's in their mind so that you can understand what their intention is? From a developmental perspective, it's a crucial step because infants are not thought to be born with the capacity to understand a mind, their own or someone else's. They can't understand motivations or intentions of themselves or others. It's been theorized that this ability is a component of healthy personality development, and it's achieved through a child's secure attachment to the parent. The baby begins to develop an understanding of minds when a parent mirrors the baby's own feelings in a way that makes it apparent that those feelings belong to the infant, not the parent. So if you have an infant who's upset and the parent responds with empathy and mirrors that and says, "Oh, are you so hungry?" and shows concern on their face, then the child begins to understand that I'm upset because I'm hungry. Toddlers begin to develop this theory of mind when they learn to speak and when they do imaginary play in preschool. And they develop this idea that they and others have minds, have feelings and intentions. And the process continues through the school-age years and into adolescence. But let's just jump back for a minute now to our mother with postpartum depression. Do we see how a baby might struggle to develop secure attachment if their mother feels down, feels lethargic, doesn't feel like engaging with them? What about mothers who work? Most mothers work. I'll share a personal story. When our first child was born, I don't know if I got permission to share this story. When our first child was born, my wife was in graduate school. And in graduate school, there's no maternity leave. The day you give birth, you don't go to school, but she was back in school before our son's bris. Now, we had great childcare. We had a bubby to watch our baby. But as I think back to it now, this is where I start getting the feeling that I said in the beginning. I wish someone had taught me these ideas before I started out. One of the topics that we may cover in the parenting series is the topic of primary maternal preoccupation, which describes the way a new mother is naturally focused on her baby and how the rest of the world seems to melt away. But this can't happen if mom and dad run back to work right away. There's a documentary produced by a psychologist in Scotland that's called The Connected Baby. In the film, the narrator points out the very real two-way communication and relationship that exists between 1-month-old infants and their parents. And once they point it out, the two-way communication is obvious. And so too is the baby's comfort when they connect with their parent, and the baby's distress if the parent is distracted or if the parent is disconnected. I think the documentary is a must-see for anyone who's expecting or anyone who has an infant at home. We have a 1-year-old at home, and over the last year plus, watching this understanding of mind develop in him has been amazing. It's been the most exhilarating thing to observe and to be a part of. And of course, we have older children who all went through the same exact process, but we didn't know what was going on. That's why I say again, I wish someone told me about this before I began. I want to discuss 3 parenting challenges that might arise, describe how the traditional approach might deal with them, and then describe how the relationship approach could give us fresh insight into how to navigate the challenges. One example is going to be with a newborn. We'll do a school-aged example, and then a final one with a teenage daughter. Imagine parenting a colicky infant. Colicky infants cry, they're hard to soothe. Our first thought, my first thought, I think, is to focus on the baby's diet, the baby's sleep, the baby's environment, and other baby-centered factors, which are all important. And if you go to the pediatrician, they'll ask you all those questions. But equally important from the relationship-based perspective would be to focus on the parent's responsiveness to the baby's needs, the baby's emotions, and the baby's nonverbal signals. A baby may experience distress for any number of reasons. He might have a tummy ache. But an available and responsive parent begins to build a relationship with the baby. And through this relationship, the parent becomes adept at understanding the baby's needs. And the baby experiences safety and calm because their needs are met predictably. Consider as well that the baby's colic affects the relationship with the parent itself. Perhaps the parent has the innate capacity to be appropriately responsive and available, but the irritable baby is hard to connect with. We had a few of those babies. And this challenge in the parent-child relationship can lead the parent to miss signals from the baby, or lead the parent themselves to become irritable. This generates a lack of parental responsiveness, and it can lead to greater colic. So we see that when we focus on the relationship, we can begin to heal the child, and when we don't focus on the relationship, things tend to spiral out of control. As children get older, we're tempted to downplay the parent-child relationship because often the challenges that arise at school or at the playground, and they're out of the house. Let's say that we have a school-aged boy who gets into a fight in the schoolyard. You'd say, well, the parent's role can't be too significant in something that happened when they weren't around. But let's consider for a minute what happens when the child comes home from school and tells their parent what happened. That moment is an opportunity for powerful parenting. And with the parent's response, the parent can help the child learn to navigate social situations, develop self-control and self-awareness, and learn to make better choices. But what we have to realize is that the parent's response is affected by a number of factors that originate in the parent, including the parent's mood or capacity for patience or empathy at that time. Maybe they had a hard day at work, maybe they're hungry. And also the parent's own experience in the schoolyard as a child. It brings back memories, maybe conscious, maybe not. And then there's another challenge. Let's say a challenge that might involve a teenage daughter. Let's say the teenage daughter wants to go to a summer camp where a friend of hers is going, but her parents are concerned that it's not the environment they want for her. Perhaps the traditional view will lead a parent to get drawn into a debate with their teen about the family's hashkafos, the family's standards, which may or may not, probably not, provide a satisfactory outcome. The relationship-based approach would encourage the parent to step back and consider, why do you care so much? Perhaps the reason why they care so much is because their own reputation is at stake. Perhaps they're stressed out about their daughter getting into seminary or finding a shidduch. But is that stress really the daughter's problem? And should that be affecting the parent-child relationship in this moment? Let's talk a little bit about repair. Since we aren't starting out from scratch today, what do we do if we've already messed up? What if our children are no longer infants? What if we see in our children unhealthy attachments? What if someone had postpartum depression for 3 months, and now her baby is a year old, and you can't turn back the clock, and you can't get those first 3 months back? The good news is that research shows there's tremendous opportunity for repair in the parent-child relationship. One study found that parents who self-reflected were able to affect and alter the transmission of insecure attachment patterns within 18 months. So they looked at them, and then they looked at them again 18 months later, and they saw a change in the attachment pattern. Self-reflection, what does that mean? Self-reflection involves the parent becoming aware of their own emotional or mental state. It involves the parent becoming aware of their level of skill in affect control and patience, and involves them becoming aware of other aspects of their life, such as unresolved trauma or general mental health. This process can and does transform the parent-child relationship as we work on our own mentalization, thinking about our own thinking, which is a crucial ingredient for a parent helping their child, newborn through young adult, develop their own theory of mind. Thank you. As a bonus, the parent's self-reflection teaches the child an invaluable lesson about resilience and overcoming challenges. We covered a lot of ground, so I want to take a minute to review. We spoke about the traditional view of parenting, which looks only at the child, finding the source of challenges and possible solutions in the challenge. And we contrasted it to the relationship-based view, which looks at the child and the parent, understanding that the source of the challenge, as well as ideas for confronting it, can be found in the child, in the parent, or in the relationship itself. We spoke about the blame game, which scares parents away from this approach, and suggested framing it as responsibility, both as a possible source of the problem and also as an achrayus. The parent is positioned perfectly to solve the problem. We spoke about Esther Amalka and Malach Kohn, realizing that la'es kazos higat lamalchus, that parenting challenges are heaven-sent messages directing us towards self-improvement and self-awareness. We learned about attachment, which is the emotional bond between an infant and its parent or caregiver, about how secure attachment sets children up for their best possible lives, and how parenting quality factors, such as parental availability and even the parent's own attachment style, are strongly correlated with the child's attachment style. We spoke about mentalization, which is the ability to understand one's own and others' mental states, and how the relationship between the parent and the child is where this development occurs, starting from the very youngest age. We recommended the documentary, The Connected Baby, especially to anyone who has a baby at home. It's available as a DVD, or you can stream it, and it does cost around $20. Over Sukkot, I was traveling with my teenage sons, and we were in a hotel one night, and we watched it together, and they liked it. So if they liked it, I think that you'll like it. They're 14 and 16, and they thought it was really cool. We applied the relationship-based framework to a baby with colic, describing important factors in the parent-child relationship that may contribute to the problem and may lead to a solution. We applied the relationship-based framework to a child who comes home from school and reports a playground fight, focusing on how this parenting challenge is an opportunity to help the child learn important life skills and how elements of the parent-child relationship must be considered, or else they can derail this opportunity. And finally, we applied the relationship-based framework to a teen who has summer plans that her parents don't like. Relationship-based parents would try to remain aware of how factors centered in the parent, such as family reputation, can cloud the judgment of what's best for the child, or at least cause communication through this challenge to break down. Thanks everybody for being such a great audience. I hope that you find these ideas transformational as I did. As Mrs. Miller mentioned, we hope to follow up with a multi-week parenting series. There's going to be a series for women, mothers, or not mothers, who with Mrs. Miller, and I'm going to lead a series for men. I don't know how people are supposed to sign up, but I'm sure that we can, on the website, I think there's a questionnaire, a short questionnaire to fill out if you're interested. And again, thank you everyone for listening.
Joining us this evening. If you haven't yet done so, please make sure you take both the magnet Bracha Savais and this very important brochure, which has a QR code on the back. And please make a bracha on the back. Have in mind all the people in Eretz Yisrael. Have in mind our own children, and may we be zocha to be able to share and hear good news. Shkoyach.
Thank you.